What's up everyone, welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be giving you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for UFC Vegas 86. And let's start out with the first fight of the card, which is Daniel Marcos versus Qileng. In this matchup, I'm going with Daniel Marcos. I think this should be a primarily striking fight. If the takedowns are coming, it's probably from Qileng. He has an ability to take this fight down to the ground. But on the feet, Daniel Marcos should be the more technical striker, and I will trust him in this matchup. I think Qileng does have some very good power, and he has a very good ability to potentially knock out Daniel Marcos, whose striking defense is not perfect. He was getting hit with some clean shots against Davy Grant, but Daniel Marcos has some nice power on his own. I think he could potentially find the knockout here. Ultimately, I am picking him by decision. I think Qileng, he's pretty durable, but Daniel Marcos is kind of lower output, especially against guys that will bring a threat on the feet to potentially knock him out like Qileng will do. I think he should be able to stop the takedowns coming his way from Qileng. And if not, probably scramble back up to his feet. And this should be a primarily striking fight where I'm going with the more technical striker who should fight pretty well at range. And although they have a pretty similar frame, I'm not sure if the UFC.com website is perfectly correct with the height-wise. I think Daniel Marcos is probably a tiny bit, taller than him, maybe a little bit bigger of a reach. But even if that is not the case, he's pretty good at slowing the fight down, winning a technical kickboxing fight, and I think that should happen here. He should win this. I'm going to say like 30-27. Maybe a couple of the rounds are pretty competitive, but ultimately, he seems like the more technical, the better fighter at range, and I think Qileng just a little bit too wild for me. He doesn't have the worst cardio. I think Qileng can make it 3 rounds, but so can Daniel Marcos. And Daniel Marcos, he has some power to his name as well, like I mentioned. So he's going to be the pick. Qileng also has a pretty poor fight IQ, in my opinion. In his most recent performance against Johnny Munoz Jr., who is a jiu-jitsu nerd, wants to take the fight down to the ground, he was entertaining it way too much. He was hurting him on the feet, and then he'd entertain the ground and kind of get caught up in some submissions. Nearly lost the fight multiple times, and although I picked him, I was sweating that fight. Now, Johnny Munoz Jr. also made a lot of mistakes in that fight as well, which probably led to Qileng finding as much success as he did. But I don't really trust Qileng's fight IQ either. And on the feet, like I said, this should be a primarily striking fight where Daniel Marcos is the more technical striker and should be able to stay away from the power of Qileng. And Daniel Marcos seems to be able to eat a pretty powerful shot. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Fernie Garcia versus Hyder Amil. Look, Fernie Garcia, not the greatest fighter. He's on a 3-fight losing streak to Rinya Nakamura, who is a good fighter. Rinya Nakamura is a very good wrestler, has some very powerful hands, very fun striker to watch, but, I mean, Fernie did survive 3 rounds, so that sounds good, but also it didn't really seem like he was trying to pop back up to the feet all that quickly, and Rinya was dominating him bell to bell, won it with no problems. But Fernie is tough. He can eat a pretty big shot. However, he's taking this on short notice and moving up on a weight class to fight Hyder Amil, who was taking this on short notice against Melsik Bagdasaryan. I was going to be picking Melsik there, but now that he is taking on Fernie Garcia, a guy who I don't think is that good at the bantamweight division. 3-fight losing streak at the bantamweight division to not very good fighters. Outside of Rinya Nakamura, who I mentioned, it's Brady Hiestand and Journey Newsom. 2 fighters that aren't good. I think Brady Hiestand has been cut or was almost cut. I think he was forced to pull out of one of his recent fights. And then Journey Newsom has been cut from the UFC. Yeah, I don't think Fernie Garcia is that good. I think he's a cool kid. Seems pretty humble, but ultimately, although he might even be more technical, Hyder Amil has power in his hands. He's pushed a pretty insane pace before. I don't think he has the greatest cardio. Fernie might have the slightly better cardio, but even then, in the Contender Series, Hyder Amil got taken down 5 times, and everyone's going to say, oh, his takedown defense sucks. No, his opponent shot 23 takedowns, and he had success reversing positions, had almost as much control time in himself. He knows what he's doing on the ground. Although his takedown defense may not be the greatest we've ever seen, it's pretty damn solid, and he's going to be pressuring Mr. Fernie Garcia, which I think will bring Fernie Garcia some problems. I think Hyder Amil finds a pretty big shot in round 1, and that forces Fernie Garcia to be a little bit too cautious, and he'll end up losing this fight once again and getting cut from the UFC. So I think Hyder Amil will win this fight. And I'm going to say like a 29-28 or 30-27, one of those type of fights. But I think he gets this done by decision, as Fernie Garcia is pretty durable. However, he is taking this on short notice up a weight class. So I'm going to have to go with Hyder Amil. And I will say this much. I'm not super high on Hyder Amil. When I go back and rewatch some of his fights, he's making a lot of mistakes. But he is a dog, and he will pressure forward. He will work in the clinch. He'll shoot takedowns if he needs to. He can have success on the feet or on the ground. And, dude, he pushes a pretty hard pace. Now, he might gas out in round 3 because of that pace he pushes, but it's one of those guys where he pushes such an insane pace early, his opponent will likely tire out with him. So Hyder Amil is the pick. I'm going to pick him by decision because Fernie Garcia seems pretty good at surviving. I guess Rinya Nakamura and other fighters as well. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Zach Pauga versus Bogdan Guskov. I'm going with Bogdan Guskov. Originally, I was really confident on the Bogdan Guskov side, but you start doing a little bit of digging. Zach Pauga used to wrestle a lot. He has some wrestling to his name, and Bogdan Guskov has gone taken down now by Volkan Oezdemir and multiple times on the regional scene as well. However, I'm still going with Bogdan Guskov. He's the much better striker, and I do think he should be able to stuff the takedowns from Zach Pauga, and even if that is not the case, he should be able to scramble back up to the feet. There was a moment where after he got taken down by Volkan Oezdemir in round 1, Volkan kind of had his back, and then he went for like a trip sweep, and he was able to reverse the position and then get back up to the feet. I think he should be able to scramble back up to the feet. Zach Pauga took down Modestas Bukauskas in round 1, and Bukauskas scrambled back up to the feet. I don't think Bukauskas is that great of a fighter. And then when I was looking at the reach compared to the height, I was a little bit concerned because it says Zach Pauga is a 6'2 guy, and Bogdan's a 6'3 guy, and said they had the same exact reach. But then I'm watching the Bukauskas fight, and I'm thinking Bukauskas is a massive dude. What is he listed at? He's listed at 6'3 as well. So is this really the difference between 6'3 and 6'2, or is Zach Pauga really just short? I think he's shorter than 6'2. If not, Modestas Bukauskas is 6'8". I'm going to go on the side of Zach Pauga's probably around 6 foot, maybe with this 76-inch reach, but I think Bogdan Guskov, bigger guy, has a reach advantage. Good power as well. He moves quickly. And Zach Pauga was at the heavyweight division. He's been fat for a lot of his career, moved down to the light heavyweight division. I'm still not sure he's a light heavyweight. He can cut more weight. Now, he's not the slowest light heavyweight in the world. He has decently fast hands considering he's a fatter guy. He's still a little bit plotty, but he has pretty decently fast hands. Essentially what I'm saying is he's going to get knocked on the round 1. I think Bogdan's going to knock him out in the round 1 because he gets hit. I could see Bogdan getting it done in round 2. Round 3 makes me a little bit iffy because we don't know about Bogdan's gas tank, but on the regional scene, he fought a guy named Nerlin, and there was some grappling exchanges in there anyways. When it hit round 3, he was still able to find the finish, which tells me, hey, he's gone to the round 3, and he's had some success. So he probably doesn't have the worst cardio in the world. However, he was mouth-breathing a little bit against Volkan Oezdemir in the first round, and that probably was because they were pushing a pretty insane pace. Ultimately, what I'm saying is Zach Pauga gets hit. If you're getting knocked out by Muhammad Usman, say what you want about Usman. Oh, well, he's a heavyweight and a brother of Usman, so he has great power. I don't think he has great power. He's not knocking out anybody at the heavyweight division. And also, he should be at the light heavyweight division. That's just facts. He's a super undersized heavyweight. He's just too lazy to cut down to the light heavyweight division. And he sparked Zach Pauga with the first shot that he landed, and it wasn't even like a super powerful shot. I think it was a check hook. Whatever. I don't think Zach Pauga has the greatest chin. Modestas Bukauskas hurt him in round 1. I don't think he has the greatest power. I think Guskov could probably eat his shots for the most part as long as he's not putting his chin on a silver platter. He should be able to absorb Zach Pauga's shots and land the bigger ones. He's got the reach. He's got the height advantage. He has a lot of submission wins to his name as well, from what I remember. Maybe not actually, but he's been in bad positions on the ground, survived them. Against Nerlon, the fight that I just brought up earlier, Nerlon had on his back, and he defended against rear naked chokes very well, so he should be able to survive. What concerns me is his takedown defense, but even then, there's been multiple times where he's been able to scramble back up to his feet when he's been taken down, and even then, he's been able to stuff takedowns multiple times throughout the regional scene. So if this is a striking matchup, which I think it primarily should be, he'll find the knockout against Zach Pauga. He's the more technical, maybe not technical, but he's the more powerful, more skilled, less fat, quicker version. Not quicker version, but quicker fighter than Zach Pauga. And Zach Pauga is hittable, like I mentioned multiple times now, and I don't trust Zach Pauga's chin. And Bogdan is very powerful. So round 1 KO is the pick. Confidence, I'm going to give him like a 60% chance, which as an underdog, I think is very good value. Now, it feels like Bogdan is the public underdog, and sometimes that doesn't work out all that well, but I'm not going to take the bait of, oh, he's the public underdog, so I'm going to flip my pick. I still think Zach Pauga is very bad. He's coming from tough from that one season, which was a very, very horrible season in my opinion. The fighters on that season were laughable. So Bogdan Guskov is the pick. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Max Griffin versus Jeremiah Wells. I think Max Griffin can get this done, but it won't happen because Jeremiah Wells is so damn strong. Now, he lost his last fight to Carlston Harris, but he was dominating, taking him down with ease, and then when he got him down, he made a mistake in round 3 and got submitted. It is what it is. And Max Griffin is a veteran that can, capitalize off of the mistakes from Jeremiah Wells. But does he have the greatest submissions? No. I think Jeremiah Wells will be able to get him down, even though Max Griffin has solid takedown defense. If this is a striking fight, I'm picking Max Griffin. I think Jeremiah Wells' striking is pretty bad. I see a lot of people saying, oh, he's a good striker. Why? Because he knocked out Court McGee? No, he's not a good striker. He's not technical whatsoever. He just wings massive, wide hooks. Not technical, like I said. And sure, he knocked out Court McGee. Court McGee, number one, doesn't have the greatest chin. Number 2, doesn't have the greatest striking defense. And number 3, Jeremiah Wells is just a super powerful guy. That's all he's got on the feet, is power. And that will intimidate a lot of guys and it will work very well with his wrestling. And considering how strong he is, he's going to be able to get a lot of guys down to the ground. Max Griffin, solid takedown defense. If he stuffs the takedowns, probably finds a big shot on Jeremiah Wells, who is very hittable. Matthew Semmelsberger was rocking this guy all over the place. I thought arguably should have won that fight based off of damage. Anyways, I think if Max Griffin stuffs these takedowns, should be able to find big shots on the feet and should be able to potentially knock him out or out-damage him to a decision. The thing is, Jeremiah Wells is going to go out there shooting early, working his game plan early, and he is strong enough to get these takedowns. Even if Max Griffin stuffs the takedowns perfectly, Jeremiah Wells is that next level of strength. I truly do believe to find these takedowns, but not only that, he's got some solid takedown entries. He's not just all strength. He's got some finesse to the domination. He's going to have to be the pick here. I'm going to say 30-27. I think he gets a dominant decision, but don't rule out Max Griffin, who has solid takedown defense, who is a veteran. And Jeremiah Wells is an older guy, so that's interesting to note, but he trains at a pretty solid gym when it comes to the grappling. I don't know about the striking, but when it comes to the grappling, I mean, you got, well, Joe Pyfer, who's also fighting on this card, but you got a lot of, who is it? Renzo Gracie Gym, who's out there? Sean Brady. There's a couple other guys that I just can't think of right now, but there's good grappling coming out of that camp. I do think he should be able to find the takedowns as the much stronger guy with some solid takedown entries. If not, he'll be able to clinch with this guy, and he does have a power threat on the feet, which does set up his takedowns pretty well. So let's move on to the next part of the card, which is Devin Clark versus Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio is a karate type of striker, I believe. He's had a lot of wins in karate, has some nice power, and he can knock out Devin Clark, and he can beat him on the feet. He probably is the better striker. In fact, I do believe he is the better striker. The thing about Devin Clark is he's going to be shooting takedowns. He's going to be working in clinch control. He's going to be pressuring you, and on the feet, he's not the worst striker in the world. He recently beat Da Woon Jung. I think that was his last fight. No, he lost to Kennedy and Zechiku recently, but had some success against Kennedy, who is a pretty tall, rangy striker. Anyways, I do think that Devin Clark is going to be pushing for takedowns, and I think he'll get him. Marcin Prachnio has been taken down multiple times throughout his career, and although is a pretty solid striker, sometimes he isn't the most busy, and although he can't find a big shot early, Devin Clark has solid cardio. He's going to be pushing forward. I trust Devin Clark to go out there and find some great takedowns, and when it comes down to Devin Clark's record, outside of his UFC debut, this dude has only lost to solid fighters that have been ranked, or outside of Kennedy and Zechiku and Azamat Mirzakhanov, who a lot of people are pretty high on. Mirzakhanov, I believe, not Mirzakhanov. Anyways, he's lost to some very solid fighters throughout his career, not any bums. That's all I got to say, man. And he has okay wins, not the greatest wins. He's beaten lower level guys, and I think Marcin Prachnio is probably one of these lower level light heavyweights, although, like I said, he is the better striker. If he stuffs the takedowns or lands something big early, he can win this fight. Maybe it goes long and Marcin Prachnio just stuffs the takedowns, wins some of the clinch control, whatever it might be, but I think Devin Clark's going to go out here, work in his game plan, find takedowns, work in the clinch, and just overall his pressure is going to bring Marcin Prachnio some problems. I'll pick him by a decision. Competitive 29-28 type of decision, maybe 30-27, but I think it'll be a competitive decision where he finds the takedowns, and a little bit of a boring one. Let's move on to the next fight of the card. We got Loma Lukbunmi versus Bruna Brazil. I'm going with Loma here. I think she can find the takedowns. On the feet, she should find some success. I know she is a small type of woman. Not a small type of woman. She's just a small woman, right? Bruna Brazil, pretty big, stocky girl. She has some power, but I don't know if it's the greatest power in the world. And I'm not sure she is the most technical striker in the world. I'm not super confident that she's going to be able to find a shot against Loma Lukbunmi on the feet. I think Loma can find success on the feet. I think she can find takedowns, dominate her on the ground, and Loma tends to only lose to some pretty solid fighters. And then she beats the ones that aren't pretty solid. So this is one of those fighters where I look at Bruna Brazil. I don't view her as one of these fantastic fighters that I think Loma Lukbunmi would lose to. I think Loma can find the takedowns. Like I said, find some control time here. Maybe have success on the feet as well. Loma's a pretty good fighter. She's just a very small woman. And Bruna is a pretty physically dominant female. So I'll leave it there. Loma Lukbunmi is the pick. I'll say by decision 30-27 here. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we got Bolaji Oki versus Timothy Cuamba. I'm going to be honest, I did not prepare for this one yet. I wanted to film this video today. If you check in the comments by tomorrow, I will have my full prediction on this fight. I'll give you the percentage for who I think will win this fight. I'll tell you this much, Bolaji Oki is a very powerful striker. He's at the lightweight division. He was preparing for Damir Hadzovic, who he was probably expecting to come from some takedowns coming his way. He was probably preparing for grapplers, what I'm getting at. And Damir will push a pace on the feet, working some takedowns, Timothy Cuamba is primarily a striker. And I'll tell you this much, I watched him on the Contender Series. He has some nice striking, but from what I remember, and I'll tell you, I haven't done my research, and I'm not going to give you a pick without doing research, which is why I will be giving you this pick tomorrow in the comments. Just go ahead and check there. But Timothy Cuamba, quick, seems like some pretty powerful hands. Just a very, very quick guy. He's going to be fighting 1 week prior to this fight. What I'm saying is he came off a KO victory last Saturday, the same day of the latest card, Imavov versus Dolidze. So it's going to be hard to trust him because he's moving up a weight class against a very powerful guy. And I really don't like this matchup, honestly. I think Timothy Cuamba is a young guy. He has physical tools and he has a fun fighting style. So why are we putting him against Bolaji, the guy that has fantastic punching power, where if he knocks out Timothy Cuamba this early in his career, it could really alter his chin for the rest of his career. It kind of does piss me off there. But what I will say is Timothy Cuamba, quick guy. Like I said, I haven't done my research, but I'm considering him, considering how quick he is. His hands look good, but I do remember thinking that he potentially could have lost that fight in the Dana White's Contender Series, and that's probably why he didn't get a contract. Anyways, he's fun. I'm going to go back, rewatch some tape on that. You'll see that prediction down in the comments tomorrow. Moving on to the next fight of the card, which is Trevin Giles versus Carlos Prates. I like Carlos Prates here. I had a video talking about my favorite prospects from the Dana White's Contender Series. He made my top 10. He actually made my top 5. I think he's a very solid striker. He's had a lot of success with Muay Thai and kickboxing in Brazil. I think he might have been a national champion or a champion in some organization over there. This guy's got good power. He's got some very good low kicks, and he is very rangy. When I look at Trevin Giles, he can mix in some takedowns for sure. I don't see him doing it, though. He hasn't done it recently throughout his career. I don't think his takedown entries are that great. And when it comes to the feet, all he's got is that jab. But it's a very patented jab that has had a lot of success against a lot of fighters and can bring a lot of people success. The thing here is he's going up against a striker with a lot of experience on the feet, and that has the range advantage and has some very good low kicks. And Trevin Giles kind of relies on his movement around the octagon. He circles, finds good angles for his jabs. And when Carlos Prates is ripping the low kicks, it's going to slow down his movement. And I think his jab's not going to be as successful, especially against a guy that is more rangy here. Carlos Prates, patient, very patient fighter. Maybe not the highest volume, but he's setting up his shots. Rolls with punches pretty well. And like I said, got some good power. I think he's probably going to find a knockout here. Trevin Giles has been knocked out by Michael Morales and Dricus du Plessis somewhat recently. He's not super chinny, but I do believe Carlos Prates is that type of guy that can find the knockout. But I could just as easily see this one going late into a decision. But I just do think this should be a primarily striking fight. And if it is, I'm going to be going with who I believe is the more technical striker and probably the more powerful striker. And just the more proven striker, I guess. If you just go back, watch some tape on Carlos Prates, I do think he's very good. When I say proven striker, maybe that's not the greatest way to put it because Trevin Giles has been proven against other UFC level fighters. But I truly do believe that Carlos Prates seems to be a very solid striker. I like that he's patient. I like that he's loose. I like that he rolls with shots pretty well. I love his low kicks here. And he is a BJJ brown belt, I want to say. Maybe a purple belt, but I remember watching the Contender Series. They mentioned that he was a BJJ brown belt, I believe. Maybe a purple belt, but he has some degree of jiu-jitsu knowledge, so that's good to know. I do think he wins this fight. I think he stuffs the takedowns. If not, scrambles back up to the feet, and when it's on the feet, he should be having success here, potentially finding a finish. I'm going to call round 2 or 3 KO, but easily could see a decision here. And Trevin Giles' jab is not something to sleep on. One of the better jabs in the entire UFC. Maybe not the best, like he says, but a pretty damn good jab. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Rodolfo Vieira versus Armen Petrosyan. I'm going with Armen Petrosyan here. I get it. Rodolfo Vieira, great submissions. We've seen Armen Petrosyan get taken down by Gregory Rodrigues twice and Calbahayo 4 times. And Calbahayo dominated him and controlled him for a large part of that fight. I understand that. But Armen Petrosyan is a very solid striker. And when he got taken down by Gregory Rodrigues, he was able to get back up to the feet the first time. And then the second time, I think it was in round 3, he got taken down, slowly worked his way back up to the feet. And like, look, he's pretty decent at scrambling back up to the feet when he's not facing Calbahayo, who is good at taking people down, yes, but also very good at controlling them. Maybe not the best at submitting them, but that's where you look at Gregory Rodrigues, an IBJFF champion. High-level jiu-jitsu, not able to hold him down. Armen Petrosyan got back up, got it back out to the range on the feet, beat him by decision. Close, controversial decision. I thought he probably should have got it, but it was a very close. He's got a very good chin as well, which is something to like here. He's got good cardio. If anyone's gassing here, it's going to be Rodolfo Vieira. He wasn't looking too great in round 3 against Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis was targeting the body a lot, and although Armen Petrosyan doesn't rip to the body with his hands, he'll rip to it with his leg kicks. Got the nice body kick, which could potentially hinder his cardio going later. I'm talking about Rodolfo Vieira's cardio. I think he's the much better striker, and although Rodolfo Vieira is the much better grappler, and the type of takedowns that he goes for are the type of takedowns that have gotten Armen Petrosyan down in the past. Cuamba and Gregory Rodrigues, when they shot their takedowns, they would shoot a double and just run and try to bulldoze their way into a takedown, and it succeeded. And I think Rodolfo Vieira probably will take him down at some point in this fight, but we could see him scramble back up to the feet. If anyone's going to be improving rapidly, it's going to be the kickboxer who is kind of slowly adapting into MMA. I think his takedown defense probably is improving. His ability to scramble back up to the feet is improving. Much better striker, like I said. Survived on the ground against two high-level jiu-jitsu guys in Cuamba and Gregory Rodrigues. And if this fight hits round 3, if anyone's likely to guess, it's going to be Rodolfo Vieira, and I know Armen Petrosyan, he will go for it in round 3. This guy is a tough dude, solid striker. I truly do believe he's a pretty solid striker. Maybe not the greatest in the division, but he's a solid striker. And although Rodolfo Vieira, great submit, I think he has some high degree of jiu-jitsu. I think he's a jiu-jitsu tournament champion. IBJFF, or it's the other one, ACDC. Not ACDC. Anyway, I'm fucking all over the place. But if he gets him down, he can submit him for sure. I do think Armen Petrosyan, like I said, good submission defense, should be able to scramble back up to the feet. And Rodolfo Vieira hasn't beaten anybody good. Cody Brundage and another fighter that's not good that I'm not remembering right now. Armen Petrosyan is the pick. I think he gets it done. 29-28 competitive decision. I think Rodolfo Vieira has a pretty strong round 1. But Armen Petrosyan, throughout his career, has been better at stuffing takedowns as the fight goes later. In round 3, stuffed the takedown from Gregory Rodrigues. Got back up to the feet as well after he got taken down as well in that round. Cuamba took him down in round 3. But he scrambled back up to the feet pretty well and stuffed the takedown earlier on in that round. I'm going with Armen Petrosyan here. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Michael Johnson versus Darius Flowers. I'm going with Michael Johnson here. Chin issues, I understand, but he's facing Darius Flowers, who is a welterweight, and he doesn't even look that quick at the welterweight division. I know he's got good power, even at the welterweight division, and if he connects clean, Michael Johnson goes night-night. He says goodbye, but Michael Johnson, been in there with some great fighters. I know Diego Ferreira just flatlined the guy, and that's always not something good to see, especially seeing that Michael Johnson is older, but he's a really quick guy for this division, and I don't think that Darius Flowers has the greatest chin. If you look at his boxing record, which I didn't even have any clue about until I'm going through Tapology, it says, oh, he's boxing. I looked through his boxing career. This guy has so many losses by KO. His chin's probably not that damn good. I'm not sure his grappling's that good, and they've trained together in the past. Maybe Darius Flowers saw an opening against Michael Johnson, but I kind of don't know if that's going to be the case. If anyone has the advantage, it's probably the veteran that's been sparring for a long time. And Michael Johnson said that Darius Flowers was there to learn from Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson was giving him some tips. So I don't know. I think Michael Johnson, obviously the veteran experience, the much quicker fighter, better proven long cardio. And Darius Flowers, sure, he took that fight on Jake Matthews on short notice, but I'm going to trust Michael Johnson here. Quicker, more accurate. This should be a striking fight, by the way. Darius Flowers does have some jiu-jitsu to his name, but he got submitted in his last fight against Jake Matthews. So here's the thing. I think Michael Johnson will be able to avoid the power shots from Darius Flowers. Probably find a KO in rounds 2 or 3, to be honest with you. Better cardio. I'm going to say it a million times. Much quicker. But he's been in there with great levels of competition, and Darius Flowers is not technical whatsoever. He's going to be winging shots randomly. And it's going to be a sweat throughout this entire fight because Darius Flowers is very powerful, and he will go for the knockout. I think Michael Johnson knows who Darius Flowers is. And if you watch his interviews, Michael Johnson's not in bad spirits. He seems like a pretty happy guy. I mean, it is what it is. I don't think that knockout from Diego Ferreira is really... I don't think it's taking such a massive toll on him at this point in his career because he's been slept so many times. It's almost like just clockwork for him. So he's going to be the pick. I'm going to say round 2 or 3 KO. I don't trust the chin of Darius Flowers. I don't trust the speed or just the overall technicality of Darius Flowers on the feet. If there's any takedowns, Michael Johnson probably stuffs them. I mean, he stuffed a lot of the takedowns from Jamie Malarkey very easily. More technical, more quick striker. Has to be the pick. Let's move on to the next part of the card, which is Gregory Rodrigues versus Brad Tavares. I'm going with Gregory Rodrigues here. Brad Tavares has a good chin, and he's got good takedown defense. Fair enough. I don't think he's got great power, and I thought he looked pretty damn bad against Chris Weidman. Pretty damn bad. I was very confident in Brad Tavares in that fight, and he was making it a sweat, even though Chris Weidman was practically crippled there. Like, a couple of his legs didn't work. I don't know how Brad Tavares didn't finish that fight, and I don't know how he made it competitive at times. His striking defense isn't that good, and he gets clipped with big shots. And I'm going with Gregory Rodrigues by KO. I know Brett Tavares has eaten some very big shots throughout his career, but he's getting dropped at times. I know Rodrigues landed so many super powerful shots on Brad Tavares, but Brad Tavares is out there getting dropped by Bruno Silva. There's been multiple times throughout his career where a very heavy power puncher is able to hurt the guy, and I do believe that Gregory Rodrigues, some of his cleanest shots are some of the more powerful shots in the division. And not only that, if he hurts Brad Tavares, which Brad Tavares does get hit clean, and if you get hit clean against Gregory Rodrigues, you're probably going to get hurt. That's when he can get taken down. And Gregory Rodrigues, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is an IBJJF world champion or champion of some sort in jiu-jitsu because he's a high-level grappler. Once it gets to the ground, his wrestling offense maybe isn't the cleanest. His takedown entries aren't super slick, but it's those very dominant, bulldozing style of takedowns. I think he's better on the ground. On the feet, he should be better, but his chin does worry me. However, Brad Tavares doesn't have insane knockout power, so I feel fairly confident about Gregory Rodrigues here. The money line at minus like 250, I'm cautious with it, but I could see why you do want to parlay it up. On paper, he should win this fight, but Brad Tavares seems like a tough outing for anybody. I'm going with round 2, Gregory Rodrigues KO. I mean, if Brad Tavares survives, I wouldn't be super surprised either. He's got a good chin. He's a durable vet, but he looks so poor in his last fight, and if that version of Brad Tavares shows up, I think he's getting knocked out, and I'm going to guess that that's the version of Brad Tavares that shows up. So let's move on to the next fight of the card. Robert Bryczek versus Ihor Potieria. I want to pick Ihor because he had a very fun and good performance against Rodolfo last fight. And if he lands those shots on Robert Bryczek, I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly. I'm going to have to hear the UFC broadcast say it. Robert probably goes out because Robert was KO'd by a jab by Qileng Brito on the regional scene. And as a result, that's making me think Robert Bryczek probably doesn't have the greatest chin if you're getting KO'd by a jab. But Qileng Brito, like I said, fantastic power. Did lose on the Contender Series recently, so that's not a great sign. But he strung together a lot of wins by knockout. And Robert Bryczek was just another one of those guys that got knocked out. Dropped by the jab, finished. If he gets caught clean, he's probably losing to Ihor. But when I look at Robert, and I've watched some of his recent fights, although he's not fighting the greatest fighters on the regional scene, he goes out there, he sets up feints pretty well, and he's pretty good at staying at range. I think he draws out a feint from Ihor, lands a big shot, and I really do not like that Ihor is cutting down more weight after already having massive cardio and kind of maybe not chin issues. I think he's pretty durable. He can eat a clean shot for sure, but now he's cutting down more weight, which is not going to impact his chin positively or his cardio. And he's already had very poor cardio. And to be fair, though, against Rodolfo, he really did everything he could to find that finish. And Rodolfo barely survived. Some refs stopped that fight, and that probably did lead to him gassing out. But this is one of those fights where he's going to go for it once again. Should be very fun on paper, but Robert could potentially take this fight down to the ground. I've seen some wrestling to his game as well, but I think that on the feet, he should be able to find the knockout. This should be a first-round knockout. Can't be super confident on either side. Robert's been knocked out. Ihor Potieria has been knocked out. Robert's a little bit untested, but Ihor has been tested and lost a lot of fights by first-round knockout, although having success in almost all of them. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Dan Ige versus Andre Fili. I'm going with Dan Ige here. Andre Fili is my boy. I'm rooting for him here. If you watch his podcast on Jackson, this is the Jackson podcast with Rampage and all them, he seems like a really cool, funny dude. He's the rangier guy here. Might have the quicker hands, right? And he's got some good power as well. And he has an ability to take this fight down to the ground. The thing with Dan Ige is he's got good power. And Andre Fili gets hit with big shots and he gets potentially knocked out. And if he's not getting knocked out, he's getting dropped and losing the round. Nathaniel Wood did this in round 1, where Nathaniel Wood got knocked down, but he came back, landed a bigger shot at the end of the round, stole that round, and then stole round 3 as well. Andre Fili, pretty solid cardio, but same thing with Dan Ige. Dan Ige has developed some pretty solid takedown defense and a good ability to scramble back up to the feet. So I don't think Andre Fili's offensive wrestling will really bring him much success here. Plus, Andre really only goes for his takedowns once he's getting hurt. If he's shooting takedowns, that tells me that he's probably not having the success on the feet that he wants to have. And the thing about Dan Ige is he's got a pretty solid chin, and he can crack and land the big shots. I think he's going to win this by decision. Andre Fili, although he gets cracked, he does have some decent chin recovery. I could see him getting knocked out. I could also see him landing the bigger shots and winning this by decision, maybe by KO. I do trust Dan Ige's chin to some degree, but Dan Ige is a vet. So is Andre Fili, but Dan Ige has been fighting some of the best strikers in the world, has pretty solid cardio. They both have good cardio. But if anyone's taking this fight down to the ground, it's probably Dan Ige. Dan Ige, I do think, has had his grappling improve a lot recently. His performance against Bryce Mitchell, to me, was pretty damn impressive. Although Bryce Mitchell was the better grappler and had success on the ground, his takedown defense massively improved. His ability to scramble back up to the feet massively improved. And he was landing big shots on Bryce Mitchell, who was a guy that had the reach advantage on him. Another tall, rangy guy. Maybe not as good of a striker as Andre Fili or entertaining the striking as much as Andre Fili, but even with that range kind of disadvantage, he found big shots and arguably should have won that fight. And I do believe he's stuffing the takedowns from Andre Fili like he did against Bryce Mitchell. But Andre Fili, long, rangy guy, quick hands, very powerful, is not going to fight the same fight as Bryce Mitchell, but I do think Dan Ige's experience, power, chin will come out on top here, and Andre Fili ultimately does get hit, and his striking defense isn't perfect. Although it looks good at times. He's a very loose guy, and when he's making his opponents miss, he looks great, and then he'll get caught with the bigger shots, and at this point, I just can't trust Andre Fili, and I do like Dan Ige's ability to potentially take this fight down to the ground. Moving on to the main event, we got Joe Pyfer versus Jack Hermansson. In this matchup, I'm going to be going with Joe Pyfer. The dude hits hard. He's got all the athletic tools to win this fight. And Jack Hermansson, although he's had some great performances in the past. I mean, he shut down Chris Curtis and was beating Roman Dolidze very, very easily. I don't think he's that good. I think maybe he's pretty decently technically, right? He's pretty rangy. He can work in the calf kicks pretty well, but he's not powerful whatsoever. And he's gotten knocked down by Marvin Vettori. If you're getting knocked down by Marvin Vettori, just imagine what happens when Joe Pyfer, the guy that hits harder than Francis Ngannou, lands on you, man. I think Joe Pyfer gets a knockout in round 2. Let's address that right now. I don't think he hits harder than Francis Ngannou. There's probably a variety of factors for why he got the higher score than Francis Ngannou. First off, we don't know which type of punch Francis Ngannou was throwing. I've seen people on social media say, well, Francis Ngannou was throwing a straight right and Joe Pyfer is throwing a hooking punch. That would make a big difference. Also, maybe because it's a glove, it's a bigger surface area, and maybe that will make you punch a little bit harder. I don't know how it all works out. I don't think Joe Pyfer hits harder than Francis Ngannou. That's what I would put my money on. But I think Joe Pyfer hits hard as hell, and credit to him for putting up such a high score. I think Joe Pyfer is going to be able to stuff the takedowns coming his way from Jack Hermansson. He trains at a very good camp with a lot of great grapplers. I don't want to say very good camp because when I look at the camp, it's like Jeremiah Wells, Sean Brady, Pat Sabatini. It's guys that can grapple. Not many great strikers, but Joe Pyfer seems like the outlier that actually can strike. And even if he's not the most technical striker, which I believe he's fairly technical, he was very slow against Abdul Razak Al-Hassan, stayed away from the power, took him down multiple times. That was a bullying type of performance where he was patient yet just dominant. And in round 2, took him down, submitted him. He's probably got a very nice submission game. I think he could probably survive the rough positions from Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson takes him down, and I don't think Jack Hermansson will. Jack Hermansson is not explosive. He's a slower guy. Joe Pyfer is going to be quicker as the larger dude, and he's going to be more powerful. When it comes to Joe Pyfer's chin, a little bit untested, but I don't think Jack Hermansson has the power to put away Joe Pyfer. Jack Hermansson does not knock people out, does not have good power. And Joe Pyfer is going to have no reason to respect him on the feet. He will have to respect the takedown threat, as Jack Hermansson does have some very high-level jiu-jitsu. Not the worst wrestling in the world, but just overall on an athleticism level, Joe Pyfer completely mogs him. On the feet, way more powerful, probably quicker. On the ground, or not on the ground, just overall, much stronger guy here. And he's an analytical guy. Like, he's going to be watching Jack Hermansson tape. All these different factors are going to play in for why I like the Joe Pyfer side, because when I watch him in interviews, very confident. When I hear what he's game planning, when I hear him talking about Abdul Razak Al-Hassan, he's knowing a lot of things that maybe the average fighter fighting Abdul Razak Al-Hassan would not know. He knows of the threats from Abdul Razak Al-Hassan. He knew of the threats from Alan Amadovsky. He's going to know of the threats from Jack Hermansson. I haven't watched his complete fight week interview, so I haven't really seen what he said about Jack Hermansson, but I imagine he knows that he's going to find the most success on the feet. If not, he trains with fantastic grapplers, and I do think that he could probably find takedowns of his own and find success from top control. I wouldn't want him to play that game, though, just because we know Jack Hermansson is a very solid grappler. So I think he finds a knockout in round 2, like I said, after stuffing the takedowns, after being a little bit patient in round 1. I can see a round 1 KO. I don't know if he's going to go out there and risk it. This is 5 rounds. We have seen Jack Hermansson go 5 rounds before. He seems to have the better cardio here. But Joe Pyfer, he's been patient before. If he stays patient, I think maybe he could go 5. I don't see him gassing out that bad. He seems like a smart guy. He generally does seem like a smart guy. I think he should find a lot of success here at the middleweight division. But this is one of those matchups that I think is tailor-made to him. I think The UFC probably wants him to succeed here, and I think they are doing a pretty good job setting him up with the victory here. I'm interested to see how he does. If he doesn't get this done dominantly, I won't be as high on him as I am now, but I don't know how good I really think he is. He hasn't really been tested that much lately, but I'm interested to see how good Joe Pyfer is. He should find the knockout. I'm actually pretty confident in him. I think the money line at minus 220 to minus 250 right now is a pretty fair play. If you want to parlay it with something, if you like something else on this card, I would say go ahead, go for that. I think when it comes to value, Joe Pyfer is one of the safer plays for me. I'm giving him like a 75 to 80% chance to win this fight. I'm not very high on Jack Hermansson. I know Jack Hermansson has given people issues in the past, but even against Roman Dolidze, although he looks quicker, he still looks like a slow fighter. There's just not many advantages I see for Jack Hermansson here outside of maybe he's a little bit more technical, but these technical advantages for him aren't going to matter against such a physically dominant and imposing guy in Joe Pyfer, who's also very smart and has probably watched at least 10 Jack Hermansson fights and rewatched multiple of them by now because this guy, he's very motivated if you don't know, and he'll tell you about it. But Joe Pyfer's the pick. I probably say that a million times right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. If there's anything you disagree with, feel free to leave it down in the comments down below. I'm always open to new opinions. I want to know what the community is on. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.